It is National Championship Monday. Welcome to our 580 WIBW and 580 Sports Talk StreamYard. Brendan Dzwierzynski and Fulton Caster here with you as we are getting ready for the Kansas Jayhawks and the North Carolina Tar Heels going face-to-face in the National Championship game coming up tonight. 8:20 start time. You'll be able to listen to KU versus North Carolina on 580 WIBW coverage from the Westwood One Sports Radio Network. And Fulton, obviously, huge, exciting day for both of us, KU grads, KU fans alike. This is such a massive day in the history of the program. Could be KU's first national title since all the way back in 2008. First time in a decade that KU has played for the national title in a building where they last played for the title back in 2012. Also, of course, we all remember, at least those of us old enough, 2003 against Syracuse, Carmelo Anthony, Hakeem Warwick, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a massive night for KU. It could be Bill Self's second championship, which would put him in rarefied air. It would be championship number 4 for the winningest program in the history of college basketball in terms of total number of wins. It is a massive matchup. We will get to all of it, of course, on 580 Sports Talk today from 2 to 5:30 on 580 WIBW. But right now, Fulton, let's get into some of the key matchups for this game. And let's start with the men in the middle. David McCormick was absolutely sensational against Villanova. 25 points. It was a season high, 9 rebounds, 10 of 12 from the floor, plus 26 for the plus minus in the box score at the end of the game. He goes up against Armando Baycock for North Carolina, who has been a rebounding machine. Back-to-back games with 20-plus rebounds, double-double per game in the tournament, just like Jalen Wilson for KU. Is that the biggest matchup of this game, McCormick versus Baycod in the post?
It would be for me because of a multitude of factors. One, KU always seems to play infinitely better when David McCormick is getting going. We've always seen that seems to be the linchpin of really getting this offense moving and rotating and getting it going at the highest levels when David McCormick is playing well. The other factor is Armando Baycock got hurt in the game against Duke, ended up injuring his ankle, took some time off the floor. Hubert Davis says he's good to go. He says he's playing no matter what. He's not missing this game one. But what level will Armando Baycott be at? Because a 70% Baycott versus a 100% Dave McCormick, you have to think that put things in KU's favor because Dave McCormick has always seemed to struggle the most against bigs that are physical, can match his side, can really play with athleticism and energy, and that's the kind of big that Baycott is to match up against McCormick. But Baycott's health is also a factor, so I think the post will be the biggest key where all this starts. Because whichever big guy can kind of dominate, force his will, get the other in foul trouble, and cause some issues, I think that'll spread to moving into the other parts of the offense, make the perimeter aspect of both those games far more easy and more free-flowing. So again, that post matchup between Baycott and McCormick, I think just is the key to the tone setting for both of these teams in this one.
I think it's also important to mention the health of David McCormick and how is Dave going to be feeling in this game. We know that foot has been bothering him over the course of the year, and it's been fine as of late. And Bill Self said a couple of weeks ago now, or a couple of days ago at least, he really isn't concerned about the health of either of his big men, David McCormick or Mitch Lightfoot, but making sure that he is 100% in his own right is obviously huge, and hopefully he's able to continue the good stretch of health he's had here with that injured foot. I do think this is the biggest matchup of the game, and it might come down to something as simple, and coaches hate this, and this goes down to the very low levels of basketball. It comes down to things like foul trouble. If Armando Baycott gets in foul trouble for North Carolina, they don't have an option. That is, similarly to Villanova, which KU just played, a super short rotation for Hubert Davis at North Carolina. They have really trimmed it down over the course of the year. If they can avoid playing any more than 5 players, they will not play more than 5 players. When they took on Duke in the Final Four matchup, really North Carolina's first national championship of the year, they only made a substitution in the second half because, 1, Baycott rolled his ankle, like you mentioned, and then 2, Baycott fouled out of the game, so Puff Johnson had to come in. If Baycott gets in foul trouble, they don't have one individual who can check David McCormick, so I think that's huge. And the same can be said on the flip side, too. If Big Dave gets in foul trouble, as much as I appreciate the effort Mitch Lightfoot has put out there, and he hasn't been asked to do much, he's asked to go out there for, 8-ish minutes a game, 5 to 10 minutes a game. Don't do anything stupid. Maybe block a shot, rebound decently, put up a hook shot or 2, and just give Dave a spell. I don't love him having to do that for 15 minutes, for 17, 18 minutes in the game if McCormick is to get in some early foul trouble, and that's a situation that would obviously favor Armando Baycock. I think that's the biggest matchup here because we know how much better KU is when David McCormick is on the floor, even if he's not shooting especially well. So I think that is the matchup to watch in the championship game coming up tonight. Now, let's also look on the perimeter. We've got to talk about Ochai Agbaji, finalist for every National Player of the Year honor, consensus All-American, had a huge night, 6 made threes, 21 points against Villanova. The first question is, do you think that kind of hot shooting can carry over from Saturday into Monday night? But the second thing is, how good, one way or the other, does he have to be in this game for KU to come away with a win?
I don't think necessarily you can, to an extent, you can't expect the same type of hot shooting to roll over completely. And to an extent of, you can't expect Ochai Agbaji to make his first 6 threes yet again against North Carolina. That is asking far too much for a guy in back-to-back games to make every single shot from the perimeter and roll it out there. That is, as talented of a shooter as someone can be, that is just unreasonable expectations from a percentage and a math standpoint. But at the same time, I think you can reasonably expect that Ochai Agbaji has found his shot a little bit, has found his rhythm a little bit, in such a way that, could he make, 2, 3 threes very early on in the first half? That is completely understandable and something you can possibly even expect to happen because it feels like Ochai has found that confidence he might have, I don't necessarily want to say was missing, but it definitely dwindled just a little bit in that willingness to be the aggressive alpha scorer that he can be. But I also don't think KU necessarily needs him to do that to this extent. But overall, I think Ochai Agbaji performance like that, with how well he played against Villanova, partly because their offense running in such a way that he was finding a lot more open looks than he was used to. I think he's just more willing to realize, I need to sometimes take these shots. I need to assert myself a little bit into the offense and play in such a way that I can kind of be that dominant scorer. At the same time, I think outside of Ochai's scoring that I think will still be present, Remy Martin's not going to have a game where he goes 1 for 5 from the floor and scores barely any points and doesn't really have his fingerprints on the game. This was Remy Martin's first game of being kind of a non-factor on the offensive side of the ball. So I think not only will Ochai, I don't know if he breaks the 20-point barrier in this game. I would expect somewhere between 15 to 18 points from Ochai in this contest. But I think Remy Martin's also, his scoring ability is going to help off the perimeter as well. That will kind of balance out for that loss of Ochai. Not at all going to be as hot as he was against Villanova, because I don't think North Carolina is going to have a moment where Ochai gets that open consistently on the perimeter again. And then it's just really hard to replicate such an efficient shooting performance, because just all in all, you could be having the exact same shot, shooting the exact same stroke, but just a few millimeters off, and now you're missing those shots that are making them. I think it'll be a good shooting night for Ochai, but there is some regression that just has to happen after a night like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that, and don't think it's worth spending our time planning for. Well, if Ochai can go 6 of 7 from 3, I mean, the likelihood of that is effectively 0. And I don't think Ochai needs to be great in this game. I think he needs to be good. And if he could get you to 15 points with 3 or 4 made threes, I think that's the kind of effort you need offensively from Ochai, because I am expecting and hoping for and thinking KU needs a good day across the board more than it truly needs a great day necessarily from either McCormick or from Agbaji. If Agbaji can give you 15 points, shoot the ball decently, and give you good effort on the defensive end, I think you want that out of Oach in this game. If McCormick, he doesn't need to score 25 in this game, but can he get you 14 and 8, 15 and 9, somewhere in that sort of range for his scoring and rebounding stats? I think that's okay. He needs to be able to take some balls away from Armando Baycock. Can Jalen Wilson essentially do what he has done over the course of the NCAA tournament? Can he get you 11 and 11, 12 and 10, something like that? Because that's what he's averaging. 11.4 points, 10.8 rebounds per game in the NCAA tournament. He has been insane, and I don't know who North Carolina has that can check him. Leaky Black is a really strong defender, one of those only 5 guys who plays for UNC. Well, I would imagine he's probably going to be tasked with Ochai Agbaji, because why wouldn't you put your best defender on a finalist for all the National Player of the Year honors? I think if Christian Brown goes out there and can get you a couple of made threes, a couple slashes to the basket, again, right about in that 10-point range, plus effort on defense, that's good. DeJuan Harris, play defense and shoot the ball when you're wide open. I mean, that's all you need from him. Remy, I don't need him to go out and score 20 points and 15 all in the first half. Can he bring energy? Can he play smart defense and just guard his ass off like he has for the last month plus and facilitate the ball well? I think if KU gets all of those things, this is going to be a fine game. So I don't think Ochai needs to be great in this game for KU to win. Now, I will say this. There was a clip, our good friend Chris Lilly, currently working at Cake TV down in Wichita, he shared the video after the game on Saturday over Villanova in which Christian Brown, as they were yelling, going into the locker room, he's yelling, that's player of the year, that's player of the year. And Ochai said, nope, guess not player of the year. If we are getting pissed off Ochai Agbaji for this game, confident, fired up Ochai, that is a massive win for KU. That makes me feel like he's not going to be playing too tight, makes me feel like he's going to be loose. That's the thing I'm looking for Och in this game. And if he's going to play with that kind of confidence, I like KU's chances, obviously, by a lot. Final thing we'll get to here, Fulton, before we get to predictions, your other key matchup, your other key X factor for this game, whether it's a specific player for KU, specific player for UNC, or just a way this game might unfold. What's the other thing you think needs to fall in the Jayhawks' favor for them to come away with a national championship on Monday night?
Interesting enough, one of my big things here is not really an individual matchup, but overall, it's North Carolina's run they've been on, really this entire NCAA tournament, and even prior to that in the ACC tournament, the end of the regular season, they have gotten some contributions from guys that don't normally play in a certain style. One, is Brady Manek going to be hitting every three possible? KU's not unfamiliar to Brady Manek from all of his years at Oklahoma. They know how good of a shooter he is. They know how to get up into his space. Stretch fours can be a problem for KU at times, so when different rotations happen, can they get up to Brady Manek? And then key, and this is an interesting one, Leaky Black on the offensive end for North Carolina is one of my biggest things in this contest because Leaky Black is not a great three-point shooter. That is statistically what he's not been. And yet, he has made more threes in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament than he had made all season prior to these points. He has all of a sudden become a very, not necessarily good, but a very streaky and untimely three-point shooter in this contest. Will that continue to fall for North Carolina? That is not something I think you can actually bank on. I think at some point the averages and everything will come crashing back down to earth for North Carolina. But if Leaky Black is still making threes for North Carolina, that changes your entire defensive game plan for Kansas. Because I think you go into this game and you just dare Leaky Black to shoot. You say, you are a guy that I get that you're hot, but you at some point will stop making these shots and we can focus our defensive energy somewhere else. If at some point he stops making the shots, then you're all good to go. But if he is once again being a dynamic offensive threat to go along with his outstanding defensive abilities, that is going to be such a problem for KU to deal with and will shift their entire defensive game plan. And then the other big thing is quite simply, can you get North Carolina into foul trouble? They do not play benches. North Carolina's been at their best under Hubert Davis when he's basically said, to hell with the bench. I'm playing 5 dudes, maybe 6, maybe 7 if I really am feeling crazy. And that's when we're going to get this done. If you can get Baycod in foul trouble, you can get Manek in foul trouble, if you can get Leaky Black in foul trouble, that's what you can do in this one. Can you force North Carolina to use the bench? Because if you can get past those first 5, at max 6 guys, I really like KU's chances because this gets through a match where you need depth to win the game. I love KU's depth and their ability to play off the bench way more than North Carolina's in this game.
So essentially give Leaky Black the DeJuan Harris treatment that, okay,
pretty much
you go beat us. Because you've got guys like RJ Davis and Caleb Love, guys who we've barely even touched on to this point, Brady Manek, who we know is a devastating three-point shooter when he gets hot. Essentially say, all right, if Leaky Black is going to beat us, fine, Leaky Black is going to beat us. The guy I'm most looking forward to, and I mentioned him earlier in his double-double per game average in the NCAA tournament, I don't know what North Carolina is going to do to check Jalen Wilson in this game. You can say, put Leaky Black on Ochai Agbaji, try to have your best defensive player shut down KU's best offensive player. Obviously, McCormick is going to match up with Armando Baycock underneath the basket. So you're left with Caleb Love, RJ Davis, and Brady Manek to match up with DeJuan Harris, Christian Brown, and Jalen Wilson. Advantage KU in general when you look at that trio right there, trio versus trio, but also which of those guys is actually going to be able to check Jalen Wilson on the defensive end? Manek? I guess that's the option you have to go with. Point Jalen Wilson. Favor Jalen Wilson in that one. He's the best secondary rebounder in this game for either team. I love his slashing ability, his ability to run the floor in transition. This is the kind of game where I would say, Jalen, do not settle for shots on the perimeter. He does occasionally settle for the three-point jumper, usually doesn't take bad shots, but this is the kind of game where I would love to see him slash to the basket, try to get someone in foul trouble, cut in through defenders that are just not well equipped to slow him down. if Jalen Wilson is playing that good of a game and it creates that much conflict on the perimeter with what Black is doing defensively, might open some things up now for Agbaji, some more open looks. I think that might be your game-changing X-factor player right there. What is North Carolina going to do to try to slow down Jalen Wilson? And realistically, the answer may be, well, not much of anything. So with that, let's get to our game predictions. National championship tonight, Superdome in New Orleans. Who comes away with the championship? Is it number 7 for North Carolina? Is it number 4 NCAA, 6 overall for the Kansas Jayhawks?
This is, I think, a matchup that's going to be closer than people might think. I think North Carolina, with the way they're playing, is going to play well, but also they're coming off an emotional win against Duke. That was a game where they played with a lot of emotional energy. It was the second game. We saw this a similar situation, not identical, but similar, last year with Gonzaga. They had a thrilling overtime win over UCLA in the Final Four. They took a half-court shot to win the game. They were riding high, and then they got the doors blown off to start the game against Baylor, and Baylor was able to ride that one all the way to the end. I don't think we get an identical thing happening in this one, but I really think the emotional turnover, the energy that was exerted by North Carolina in the game last one's going to be really big here. I think KU's riding high. They're feeling it. They're loose. I think Dave McCormick will play well. I think Agbaji will play well. Juwan Harris will have another great defensive game against Caleb Love and really keep him in check, and everything's going in this one. I think in this one, KU gets national title number 4. Bill Self gets national title number 2, joins that rarefied air. I got KU in this one, 78-70.
I've got a very similar score to you. I've got the same number for KU at 78. I'm going to give North Carolina one more 3-point field goal. I've got 78-73. So KU just covers that 4-point spread. The total for this game is 152 points. So I've got the total going underneath that by a single point. I think there could be a lot of points scored in this game. North Carolina will want to run, I think, because that is when they are at their best. They're not a great defensive team, far more mediocre compared to some of the teams they've played in this tournament. I mean, they played Baylor, which is one of the top 15 Ken Pom rated, at least, defenses in the country. KU has skyrocketed all the way up to number 17 after being in the 50s at one point this year. We know how well KU is playing on the defensive end. I think if North Carolina just tries to get in a track meet with KU, Kansas is going to win this game, possibly going away. Now, KU could struggle shooting the ball. You know, if Ochai has a game where he only goes 2 for 8 from 3 as opposed to 6 out of 7, that's obviously going to create some problems. If Wilson or McCormick gets in foul trouble, that's obviously going to create some massive problems. So I do think it's going to be close. I think North Carolina is going to keep it within about 2 possessions. I'll go 78-73. But you mentioned it, and I really think this is something maybe that as a KU fan and supporter and someone who covers the team, I am leaning and hoping a little bit more for this than maybe it realistically is going to come into play. But they're coming off a massive emotional high, a game that wasn't just the high of beating Duke. It was beating Duke with big shots at the very end of the game, a true rising action climax narrative kind of storyline in that game against Duke. Are they going to be up for the task just 48 hours later to do the same thing against KU? I don't know that they will be. They went crazy celebrating after their win against Duke, and rightfully so. They deserve that. KU was all business after that win over Villanova. Maybe that's me just trying to assign credibility or assign weight to things that don't necessarily deserve it, but I'm going to go with the Jayhawks here. I think Bill Self gets title number 2. Hubert Davis will have to wait for his first. Coming up tonight, 8:20 tip, Kansas wins overall national title number 6, NCAA title number 4. And we will be talking all about the game coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. That's on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9 in Topeka. You can also listen around the world at WIBWnewsnow.com, where you will find our post-game coverage as well. For Fulton Caster, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski. We will talk to you from 2 to 5:30 on 580 Sports Talk. Enjoy tonight's game, and Rock Chalk Jayhawk.